So, thank you very, very much for the invitation to attend the Governance Forum and your AGM. I hope you're having an enjoyable day and informative day. I am going to talk for about 25-30 minutes just through our sustainable assumption, to explain what we've learned over the years using it as we've developed it. But first I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to NCBO, to myself, then I'll take you through the summary, and then we'll have some questions from the floor, and I'll be very interested to hear what you have to say. So my discussion is going to be based around my experience with NCBO and the way we've developed it through UK NGOs and UK charities. They'll be maybe transferable to Hong Kong, maybe not. I'd be very interested to hear your experience, whether you think what I'm talking about in terms of UK experience is similar, what's the same, what's different. So I will welcome your comments at the end. So please do ask. Okay, so NCBO, as explained, was the National Council for Voluntary Organizations. We are the umbrella body for NGOs in England, not UK. Our constitution is England-based. We do have sister councils in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. But given the size of NCBO and the population size of England, we lead a lot on issues and activities for UK-wide. But we always do that in collaboration, wherever possible, with our sister councils in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So NCBO has two main functions, if you like. One is our policy advocacy, which is backed up by our research and data unit and is evidence-based. That's where we will make the case for the sector, to government in the main, but to other sectors, increasingly the private sector, we are making the case and interacting with. The second main arm of NCBO is our organisational development and capacity building unit. And that's the part that I put into. My background is, I'm originally from Australia. I'm a social worker. Originally a high school teacher, retrained as a social worker, and worked in community law and community justice for many years, and then moved into management and governance and a consultancy and advisory capacity at NCBO. I've been a trustee, we use the term trustee for board members in the UK. I've been a board member of an NGO's my whole adult life. For the first time, at the beginning of this year, my term came to an end on the latest NGO, and I'm not on a board, an NGO board, for the first time in my adult life. It feels liberating, but it was time to take a break. Okay, so that's me and NCBO. I just wanted to point out it's your 71st year. I didn't realise that the council here in Hong Kong was that old. But next year, NCBO is turning 100. We have a lot of plans for next year to celebrate that. The focus for our celebrations is going to be less on NCBO and more on the sector in the UK. This gentleman here this is how we were founded. This gentleman, Edward Birchall, was a soldier in the First World War, an English soldier, and was very active in his community in lots of philanthropic activity. And he said that should he die on the battlefield, scuppered is an old English term, not familiar with that, should he die on the battlefield, he's leaving £1,000 to start an organisation to support philanthropic organisations. And he did, unfortunately, die in France on the battlefield in 1918, and in 1919 his £1,000 established the National Council for Social Service in England. And that's our history. We changed our name to NCBO way back in the 60s. But yeah, I just thought I'd point that out first. And a little bit of context for what we're talking about here in, this does cover the UK. There's 161,000 registered charities in the UK. And we largely classify these into 4 types of organisations, is what people are doing. One is grant-making charities or grant-making organisations. Second is research charities. So our largest is Cancer Research UK. By far the biggest bulk is the third one, which is providing services, social services, human services in some way. That's by far the greatest amount that are there. And lastly is campaigning and advocacy organisations. Clearly, a lot of organisations do all 4, or a combination of those 4, in delivering their work. One of our largest disability agencies, Scope, will deliver services for people with disabilities, but will also be doing a lot of campaigning and advocacy to make changes in the interests of people with disabilities. Of those 116,000, 14,000 of those are our members of NGO. So we've got roughly about 10% of the sector are our members. That is growing for us, largely because a lot of our capacity building resources that we're delivering to the sector are there, of which this is one which we're talking about today. Whoops. Sorry. Jumping ahead. On what? And what I will say is the context of what I'll be talking about with UK charities is in the context of the last 10 years since the global financial crisis of 2008 and a decision by government through invading out banks left public expenditure much depleted. And so public expenditure by UK government in the last 10 years has plummeted a lot, which meant their expenditure either to local authority and local government and out to charities is much depleted. So I'm just putting that in the context of what I'll be talking about as well in terms of sustainability. Okay, these are the types of capacity building support we do. We have email and phone support. A lot of our work now is going online in tools and resources. A lot of those will be free, and a lot of those are just for members. Training and events is an income earner for us. We have consultancy as well on a fee-for-service basis. And we have what we call trusted suppliers, which is like a preferred suppliers where we get deals for our members, utilities and insurance and all sorts of things like that, where we broker deals. And these are our core topics that we will offer support in. Our 2 biggest ones that organisations are interested, 3 biggest ones that organisations are interested in. Number 1 is funding, of course, governance, and managing volunteers as well is a big one for us. But these are all the areas that we will offer some type of support to organisations. Okay, so let's get into the substance of the tool that we're using. So this has traditionally been a print document for us, just fold out, and is available PDF as well on our website, and the link will be in the presentation that will be on the Council's website later. So this tool was developed for about a couple of years ago over our experience of helping organisations to think about their funding sustainability, about how to be financially sustainable, and what are the sort of the basic parts of an organisation that do that. It's designed to be something as a self-assessment tool, or it does work very well also as a facilitated workshop. And that's often quite handy for a board and for senior management in an organisation to to have someone external come in to facilitate a discussion in completing the tool. But it is also designed for you to do it as a self-assessment tool for a board or senior management to do. We are also now building an online facility for this where it will be interactive online. It should be live sometime in the first half of next year. Okay. So, what do we mean by sustainable funding? Well, for us, we think there's three things that what makes sustainable funding for an organisation. First is this suitable for your organisation? So what's right for one organisation isn't going to be right for another organisation. And what's right for you now may not be right for you in 5 years' time, 10 years' time. So it's all about sort of making a judgment that this is right for us in the time, for where we are at the moment as an organisation. It might also be about, it's not one size fits all, big versus small. Most of our members are very small organisations. Sometimes with no paid staff, sometimes with just a handful of paid staff. That is most of our members. And this is where what we've learned in creating this tool, thinking about those smaller organisations is what we consider, what it's designed for. It is applicable for large organisations as well. So this does fit with a lot of what Dr. Form was just saying about mission and strategy as well. And they're getting that right. There's sometimes also there might be some legal requirements, ethical requirements for you to think about, and you're thinking about what's suitable as well. And does this fit with your general strategy? Second is it sufficient for your needs? And that's not right now. This is then getting back to what Dr. Fung said about strategy, about 5 to 10 years' time. Does it meet your organisation needs now? And does it meet your strategy of where you're going in the future? Also be thinking about that full cost recovery. Are you covering all your costs, all your overheads, all your direct costs, all your indirect costs that might be coming from the funding source? Are you factoring that in? And lastly, what we mean by stable, is the income stable for your organisation? So that's thinking of, are you sort of evening out cliff edges, gaps in funding, looking at cash flow, multi-year, have you got a multi-year strategy going on as well? So that is largely what we mean by that. And in general, so it's not just about funding and income generation. If you're going to talk about sustainable funding being suitable, sufficient and stable, then it has got very strong links with that strategic work, with your governance, financial management, impact, marketing and communications. And this is fundamental to our 6 elements, if you like, of the tool that we developed. So, those 6 elements that we have talked about and have identified for an organisation is, number 1, are you taking a strategic approach? And I will go through each of these in detail. Looking at income diversity, financial management systems and processes are in place. Are you measuring and communicating your success? Again, getting back to impact, that was just talked about in the plenary session. Looking at your external positioning and marketing, where are you sitting in the broad scheme of things? And finally, your relationships that you have out there in the world with your organisation. So these, in our experience of working with many organisations to develop a financial and funding strategy, It's these 6 elements that make up the tool for us. The tool is rather simple, and you've probably seen this concept before. It's just designed, we call it a sun tool, just to keep things bright and happy. But the tool is a set of concentric circles from 1 in the middle out to 10. Not a very detailed graphic there. That you rate yourself against for each of the 6 areas. And basically, you will make yourself looking at each of the 6 areas. You can just rate yourself as to where you think you sit. It's very simple to say, if you think we don't know a thing about this, then you're somewhere in the 1 to 2 range. You are aware that you've got some gaps, but you don't know where to go. That's 3 to 4. 5 to 6 is where you're at that stage where you are sort of beginning to make some changes, implement some improvements for what you're doing. 7 to 8 is you've got very good progress. You think you're doing fairly well in delivering against each of those areas. And 9 to 10 is you are excellent. And what you end up with is something like this spidergram here, is where you rate yourself and you come up and create this for yourself. It is primarily designed to start a conversation. It's not particularly scientific in the end, but the idea is for board members and for senior management to have a conversation about where you sit on the scale. For some people, they're going to say, we're a 3. Other people say, no, we're a 5. And we want that healthy discussion and healthy debate to occur between those senior people in the organisation, the board members and the senior staff, to come to an agreement and talk about the issues, talk about the processes, talk about the systems that you have in your organisation that you think you have, or where your gaps are and what you need. So it's a fairly simple concept, and we use this model for a whole range of different tools that we've got at NCPO. So let's have a look in detail at some of these, at each of these. And what you might like to do, as we just have a look at each of these, is very quickly do your own self-assessments on your organisation. So just jot down where you think you might fit on each of these 6 rays of the sun tool. So the first one is about that strategic approach to funding. And these are some of the typical statements that we have heard from organisations that we've helped over the years, and we've sort of distilled them into these classic quotes, if you like, as to what it might look like. So having a read through from the back where people have no idea, where we, for 1 to 2, we react to situations. If a plan exists, it isn't shared or understood. We may take decisions in response to available money or personal interest rather than the mission. So it's that chasing the money, any money will do, we'll just grab it. Without a thought about plan or strategy. Through to number 10, where your perfection and your mission is reflected in your work, values and ethos, and guides how we raise funds and what we raise funds for. We plan strategically, and our plans are flexible and regularly reviewed in a clear, transparent, inclusive process. So just think about your own organisation now. And just, you can jot that out if you like. Where would you put yourself? On the scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate yourself? Just think about that. The things that we sort of group, I just sit down if I may. So the things to think about here are things like the classic dynamics that we see is where people just think in the short term. We need money now. And this is probably the most common scenario where people just do not have, they can't think for the long term. They're worried about, we need money now, we need to pay the bills now, we need to kick our organisation for it. It's also important, as was already discussed in the plenary there, that your activity in generating income is not separate from your mission. So in the UK, we've had a few fundraising, I wouldn't say scandals, but a few bad reputational issues around aggressive fundraising tactics, particularly towards vulnerable people. So it's often we had a series of bad press around some of the larger charities with their aggressive fundraising tactics aimed particularly at older people, where some people were getting up to 50 mailings from different charities with cold calling, phone calls, knocking at the door, and what could be amounted to harassment from fundraisers. And what we found, these were some extreme examples, but what we did recognise that was common in a lot of charities was where the concept of raising funds and generating income was excused, any poor process in that was excused because we were raising money for our charitable purpose, for our public benefit. And of course what was lost there was public trust and reputational issues for the organisation. So the point is, the way that you raise funds, the ways that you generate income must be congruent with your values as an organisation, with your mission as an organisation. Because public trust is essential. There are also sometimes some legal constraints there. So in the UK, there are, if you can trade, you can have what's called non-primary purpose trading. You can trade in your charitable purpose and activities that congruent with that, but you also, if you wanted to trade outside of that, you do need to have set up a separate legal entity as a trading subsidiary. But I won't go into the detail for that. Okay. So the second arm of the Sustainable Sum Tool is about income diversity. And this is probably the most important one, and this is where we might look at organisations who are about diversifying your income base. Reliance on one source of income or very few sources of income, we found, is one of the danger points for an organisation. And again, getting back to my comments about the lack of public government expenditure these last 10 years and lack of funding available for not-for-profits and NGOs in the UK, has meant that we've had a lot of closures because people were reliant on one source of income, usually from a local government or from central government. They were reliant on that source of income. And of course, when that dropped away over this past 10 years, so the organisations have had to close. We had a lot of mergers too. So this is sort of where you might sort of, again, rate yourself. Where do you think your organisation fits on this? Relying on one source of income? Or are you up near number 10? You've got multiple income streams with a range of sources of income, levels of risk, timings and costs. Where do you think you sit? So just think about that. I will point to one of the things we use. This is another tool that I've just alluded to around income diversity. So this is what we call our income spectrum. So we have, what we have here is sort of this continuum where at one end for an organisation is about asking for funds and one is about earning for funds. And we've largely grouped them into 4 different categories. One is gifts, so that's sort of individual donations, corporate donations, philanthropic gifts of some sort, where people are giving you something and not expecting anything in return other than for you to spend it on your purpose, on your mission. Then we've got subventions and grants as well, where it is given for a purpose, but it is still largely at that giving side of things, where it's a broad grant for you to undertake a certain project or activity. Then we start getting where the government in the UK has moved from subventions to contracts a lot more, where they're much more targeted in what they're going to purchase from you. So it's rather than giving you a broad subvention to say, we like your charitable purpose, and we're going to give you this money, to, right, we want you to deliver these particular outputs of these particular activities. And your money is tied directly to that, and we want a very clear budget and financial reporting for each of those, with the problem then being what's not there is where your full cost recovery is very important there. Because that's where they don't want to give you any money for your core costs, for your other overheads. And that can cause a problem. And then last is in the open market. And where you might be trading or selling things out more broadly. So when we use this, we have these sort of main three questions. Is what's your current split across this spectrum? What's your preferred split? Where do you think you put it? And this is where your creative ideas come in with, where you're thinking, we need to, we could do this to generate some income, we could do this fundraise. And then the third one is, how are you going to get there? What's your realistic plan? So be creative, but be realistic, is where we focus on for this one. Thirdly, we have your financial management systems. This is where probably not-for-profits and NGOs in the UK perform solidly on this one, largely because we have a NGO and charity regulator in the UK where you have to report annually with your audited financial accounts. So that does mandate a certain essential level of at least financial management that's there. So that's fairly strong, and we find most charities will perform okay for financial management. One of the big issues that we do find though is, if you like, the financial literacy of board members is still often a problem. Many board members committed to the cause, passionate about the organisation, but not so sharp on their financial understanding. And that's often the weak point that we find in this one. Third is about communicating your success. So this is about being able to show you're making a difference. Again, talking back to the plenary, it was about demonstrating your impact. And this is where about moving from the anecdotal of feeling knowing you do a good job, but being able to demonstrate that you do a good job. So this is about monitoring what you're doing, collecting data, having the evidence for you. And this is where we find a lot of smaller organisations in particular perform weak on this one. Because although they know they're doing a good job, they can see it every day with their beneficiaries and their service users, that people are doing well. They're not capturing that as evidence, not capturing that as data. And that's often the small organisations don't have the systems or processes for that. There is a link that you might like to visit at the bottom when you get the slides as well. This is a tool, NGO are part of a consortium of other organisations to help small organisations measure their outcomes and their impact. Because we recognise through using this tool, we've found a lot of organisations are weak in being able to demonstrate that. The fifth area is your external positioning and your marketing. So this is about knowing your unique selling point, and that may be, we've found too, your unique selling point may be different for different audiences or different markets, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. It's like what one audience might like about your organisation may be different to what another. And knowing what they want or what they like and what they will support, and then tailoring your communication to that. It's about having a plan, but also being able to respond, to be opportunistic to the short-term opportunities that come up as well. And it's about striking that balance between having a plan, but sometimes you've just got to draft an opportunity as when it comes. This was also about keeping abreast. What we found is people to keep abreast of what your competitors are doing. And also what we found is competitors are often your partners as well. So we have found this ourselves at NCBO. We'll often enter into projects or activities with other partner organisations, but they might also in other areas of our work be a competitor as well. And it's about just being able to straddle that area between competitors and partners. And lastly, the last area on the sun talk is about your relationships. I guess the most important thing here for us is to have a stakeholder management plan or something where you know who your key people you need to develop a relationship with and understand them and build your relationships with them. This is also where we've learned that the more sustainable organisations are the ones where they are in relation, have a relationship with organisations that not only add value to a project, but also you can learn and share skills or learn and share staff across a project. So you might have some skills gaps in your own organisation, but it's with key relationships where you can fill some of those gaps and share some and learn or skills share. And often we find, getting back to collecting data and evidencing your impact, it's often easier to collect data, we found, using this tool, when people trust you and know you. So the more you get out and build relationships and trust with other people, and trust with your beneficiaries, it can be much easier to collect data. People are much more willing to give you that information. And it's also particularly around government, but also around trusts and foundations. A key thing here is about being involved in the full commissioning cycle for a project. So if a funder is deciding they're going to give some money out there, if you can be involved in the needs assessment at the beginning and direct on where they think they might want to fund, that's really important. So I would say that keeping relationships with funders and other sources of income is very, very important. Right. So that's our six. If you like, that's our 6 areas of the talk where you can take it. I have some hard copies. I haven't got enough for everybody, but I've got some hard copies you can take away. Or, as I say, the link will be on the slides. You can do a quick assessment. You might want to share it. Often we will use this with boards, where we'll get each board member to do it individually, and then we'll bring them together to have that discussion. Might be a good way to do it. So what have we learned? It isn't just about, as I started, I said it's not just about getting the money, any money will do. It really is about good governance and independence. The whole 6 arms is about having an understanding of the whole of the organisation and where you sit in your whole environment that you're operating in. I'd also say what we've learned is it's not a straightforward journey from 0 to 10, and organisations change. Internally, the external environment changes. You lose a key board member, you lose a key member of staff. Global financial crises happen. In the UK, for example, the external environment changes. So you can slip back. Through no fault of your own, you can slip back from where you might rate yourself on the thing. So it isn't a straightforward or linear journey. You have to keep tweaking it. I'd also add that perfect doesn't exist as well. It's in some cases 10 is a bit wrong. I'd say, again, I'd point out it was not scientific. This is about starting a conversation. It's about judgment and about having a discussion. Saying you're a 9 is not. There's nothing scientific about this. It looks, it's made to look a bit scientific, but that's it. It is just about a scientific. It is about a conversation starter and about judgment by the board and senior management. And lastly, those organisations who are in a critical funding situation, it's not relevant. it's not appropriate, is also what we've found. For those organisations who are worried about cash flow for the next 6 months and will they have to make people redundant, this is probably not appropriate in terms of strategy. It'd be nice for them to get there, but it's a different strategy. If you're facing closure in the next year, then you need to have there's a different plan, where you get yourself on some sort of stable footing. And you'll find in your slides at the end just this broad table of where your crisis situation, where this is not appropriate, but where you might be looking more, once you've got yourself into a critical or secure or stable form, then you can begin to start looking at these broader 6 factors rather than just, we need some money now because we're going to close in 6 months' time. And lastly, there we are. Our core, when it comes to funding and income generation, these are our core sites. Our Sun tool, that's the link that you can get this as a PDF. As I say, next year we'll be putting it online as an interactive tool. Know How Non-Profit is our core knowledge-based site for the sector. And Funding Central is the database of funding sources, largely UK focused, so it might not be that useful for you. And I've just launched in the past month our income diversification planner, which is member only for us, but you can get international membership in CBO for 50 British pounds if you want to get it. But that basically takes you through the income spectrum tool and gets you through where your current scenario is, where your preferred income spectrum will be, and helps you develop a plan on how to get there. So they're our sort of core funding sources. So there, I'll wrap up. That is our Sustainable Sun tool, just a very quick tour of it. You can look at it more in your leisure, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Myles. Thank you.